In the dusty heart of Montana's vast plains, where the sunsets bled orange across endless horizons and the wind whispered secrets through the tall grass, Jack Harlan gripped the reins of his old pickup truck. At 52, he was a man carved from the land itself, calloused hands, weathered face, and a heart scarred by loss. His wife, Mary, had been taken by cancer 5 years ago, leaving him to tend their sprawling ranch alone. The isolation gnawed at him like a coyote on a bone. One fateful evening, driven by a loneliness that alcohol couldn't drown, Jack found himself at the edge of town, pulling into the gravel lot of a dimly lit establishment called the Silver Spur. It wasn't his usual haunt, no, this was a place where men paid for fleeting escapes from their realities. But tonight, something pulled him there, a whisper of desperation, perhaps, or fate's cruel hand. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and regret. Jack slid onto a stool at the bar, nursing a whiskey that burned less than the emptiness in his chest. His eyes scanned the room, landing on her, a young woman named Lila, with fiery red hair tied back in a ponytail and eyes that held stories deeper than the Missouri River. She was 28, or so she claimed, working the floor in a faded dress that spoke of better days long gone. The manager, a greasy man named Earl, had her on rotation, as he called it. Jack, in a moment of impulsive folly, paid the fee, $200 for an hour of her time in a back room. It was money from his latest cattle sale, meant for repairs on the barn, but grief had a way of twisting priorities. Lila led him to the dimly lit room, closing the door with a click that echoed like a judgment. She turned to him, her posture defiant yet weary, and fixed him with a stare that could cut glass. "You paid for me," she said, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of challenge. "Now do it." The words hung in the air, raw and expectant, the emoji of shock in Jack's mind mirroring the title of some sensational tale he'd never imagined living. He froze, the weight of her assumption crashing over him like a sudden storm. She expected the transaction, the mechanical detachment that defined her nights. But Jack wasn't that man. Not anymore. Not after Mary's gentle love had shown him the fragility of the human soul. He sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped, and shook his head slowly. "Miss, I don't know what I'm doing here," he admitted, his voice gravelly from years of shouting orders to ranch hands who no longer existed. "I paid because I needed someone to talk to. Just talk. If that's all right." Lila blinked, caught off guard. Men didn't come here for conversation, they came for oblivion. An unexpected turn flickered in her eyes, curiosity mingled with suspicion. She crossed her arms, leaning against the wall. "Talk. For $200. You're either a fool or a liar." But she didn't leave. Instead, she sat across from him on a rickety chair, and for the first time in months, words spilled from Jack like rain on parched earth. He told her about the ranch, how it had been his grandfather's dream, passed down through generations, a testament to hard work and resilience. He spoke of Mary, her laughter echoing through the fields as they rode horses at dawn, her strength during those final months when the doctors gave up hope. "She made me promise to keep living," Jack said, his eyes misting. "But living alone out there, it's like being buried alive." Lila listened, her defenses cracking like dry soil underfoot. No one had ever asked about her story, not really. Men saw her as a commodity, a temporary fix. But Jack's gaze held no judgment, only quiet empathy. As the minutes ticked by, Lila found herself opening up, an unexpected realization dawning that this stranger might actually see her as a person. She revealed her own scars, raised in a broken home in Billings, dreams of becoming a teacher shattered by a string of bad choices and worse men. She'd ended up at the Silver Spur after her ex left her drowning in debt, the job a desperate lifeline. "I tell myself it's temporary," she whispered, "but nights like this make me wonder if I'll ever escape." Jack nodded, feeling a kinship in their shared isolation. The room, once charged with awkward tension, now felt like a confessional, a space where two lost souls could breathe. But the clock was merciless, and as their hour neared its end, Lila stood, wiping a stray tear. "Time's up, cowboy. You got your talk. Jack rose too, but instead of leaving, he reached into his pocket and pulled out another wad of bills, $500 more, all he had left from the sale. This ain't for more time, he said firmly. It's for you. Use it to get out of here. There's a bus station in town, buy a ticket to wherever your heart points. Lila stared at the money, then at him, her breath catching. Why? You don't even know me. Jack shrugged, a small smile breaking through his rugged features. Because kindness don't need a reason. Mary taught me that. And maybe helping you will help me remember how to live again. She hesitated, the weight of his generosity pressing on her like an unearned grace. In that moment, an profound realization hit her, this wasn't pity, it was humanity at its rawest, a selfless act from a man who had every reason to be bitter. Tears welled as she accepted the money, her voice trembling. You're serious? Jack nodded. Dead serious. And if you need a place to land, my ranch could use a hand, not like this, but real work. Feeding horses, mending fences. No strings. It was an offer born of impulse, but it felt right, like the first green shoot after a long winter. Lila didn't take the bus that night. Instead, she quit the Silver Spur, Earl's protests falling on deaf ears. The next morning, she showed up at Jack's ranch, suitcase in hand, ready to start anew. The transformation began subtly, Lila learning to ride, her laughter mingling with the lowing of cattle. Jack, for his part, found purpose in teaching her the ropes, his days no longer endless voids. But the emotional climax came one crisp autumn evening, as they sat by a campfire under a canopy of stars. Lila turned to him, firelight dancing in her eyes. You paid for me that night, and I told you to do it. But you did something better, you saw me. You saved me without asking for anything in return. Jack felt a warmth spread through him, a healing he hadn't thought possible. And you saved me right back, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. In that act of compassion, their lives intertwined not as debtor and savior, but as equals forging a new path. The ranch flourished under their combined efforts, Lila's fresh ideas bringing in ecotourism, turning the old homestead into a beacon for weary travelers seeking solace in nature's embrace. Months turned to years, and what started as kindness blossomed into a deep, genuine bond. They married in a simple ceremony by the river, surrounded by neighbors who'd witnessed the miracle. Jack's once empty home echoed with life again, Lila's students from the local school visiting for riding lessons, her dream of teaching realized in unexpected ways. The ranch became a symbol of second chances, drawing stories from across the USA of people inspired to extend a hand to strangers. In the end, Jack Harlan's life changed forever not because he sought redemption, but because he chose selflessness in a moment of vulnerability. Lila's words that fateful night, "You paid for me, now do it," became a private joke between them, a reminder that true humanity lies in defying expectations with grace. And in a world often divided by hardship, their story whispered a heartwarming truth: one act of kindness can ripple outward, transforming not just two lives, but inspiring hope in countless others. For in the power of compassion, we find our shared strength, our universal bond, and the enduring light that guides us home. Adding more details, backstory, dialogues, scenes.I in the blistering heat of a Montana summer afternoon, where the sky stretched endlessly like a taut blue canvas and the air shimmered with the scent of sagebrush and distant rain, Jack Harlan steered his battered Ford pickup down the rutted dirt road leading to his ranch. At 52, Jack was a man who had been shaped, and broken, by the land he loved. His hands, rough as sandpaper from decades of wrangling cattle and mending fences, gripped the wheel tightly. His face, etched with lines from squinting against the sun and the weight of unspoken grief, told a story of quiet endurance. 5 years had passed since his wife, Mary, succumbed to the cancer that had ravaged her body, leaving him alone on the 500-acre spread that had once been their shared dream. The ranch, Harlan's legacy, was all he had left, a testament to generations of hard work, but now it felt like a hollow shell, echoing with memories that haunted him like ghosts in the wind. That day, as Jack unloaded bales of hay from the truck bed, sweat soaking through his flannel shirt, a wave of loneliness crashed over him with brutal force. The nearest neighbor was miles away, and the town of Willow Creek, with its population of barely 2,000, offered little solace. His days blurred into a monotonous rhythm: rise at dawn, tend the herd, fix what was broken, collapse into bed at dusk. Nights were the worst, staring at the ceiling, replaying Mary's last words: promise me you'll keep living, Jack. Don't let this land swallow you whole. But living? That felt like a foreign concept. Desperation, raw and unyielding, pushed him toward a decision he never thought he'd make. Tonight, he'd seek companionship, even if it came at a price. As the sun dipped low, painting the horizon in hues of fiery orange and purple, Jack cleaned up and drove into town. Willow Creek's main street was a sleepy affair: a diner, a hardware store, a few bars. But on the outskirts sat the Silver Spur, a nondescript building with neon lights flickering like false promises. It wasn't a place for respectable folk, it was where men went to forget, paying for the illusion of intimacy. Jack had heard the rumors: women down on their luck, working the rooms for cash. He'd never set foot inside before, but tonight, grief's grip was too tight. He parked, took a deep breath, and stepped through the door. The interior was dim, heavy with the haze of cigarette smoke and the low hum of country music from a jukebox. A few patrons hunched over their drinks, eyes averted. Behind the bar stood Earl, the owner, a slick man with a mustache that curled like a snake and eyes that appraised everything in dollars. Jack ordered a whiskey, downing it in one gulp for courage. His gaze wandered to the women mingling about, tired smiles, forced laughter. One caught his eye, a redhead in her late 20s, with freckles dusting her nose and eyes the color of storm clouds. Her name tag read Lila. She moved with a guarded grace, her faded blue dress clinging to her frame, hinting at a life worn thin. Earl noticed Jack's stare. First time here, Harlan. Lila's available. 200 for an hour in the back. Cash up front. Jack hesitated, his stomach twisting, but the emptiness won. He slid the bills across the bar, money from selling a prize heifer, meant for new fencing. Earl pocketed it with a grin. Enjoy yourself, cowboy. Lila approached, her expression neutral, professional. Follow me, she said, leading him down a narrow hallway to a small room with a bed, a lamp, and little else. The door clicked shut, sealing them in. She turned, hands on hips, sizing him up. You paid for me, she stated matter-of-factly, her voice carrying a hint of defiance mixed with resignation. Now do it. The words hit Jack like a thunderclap, the shock of them freezing him in place. Flushed face, he could see the expectation in her eyes, the routine, the detachment. This was her world, one transaction at a time. But Jack wasn't here for that. Not really. The title of his unfolding story flashed in his mind, a sensational twist waiting to happen. He sank onto the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. Miss Lila, is it? I ain't here for what you think. His voice was low, rough from disuse. She raised an eyebrow, crossing her arms. Then what are you here for? Refund's not an option. Jack looked up, meeting her gaze. There was something in her eyes, a flicker of vulnerability beneath the armor, that reminded him of Mary in her younger days, full of fire and fight. Talk, he said simply. Just talk. If you'll indulge an old fool. Lila paused, surprise etching her features. Men didn't pay for talk, they paid to escape words altogether. An unexpected turn stirred within her, curiosity battling wariness. She pulled up a chair, sitting opposite him, knees almost touching. All right, talk. But the clock's ticking. Jack nodded, grateful. Words tumbled out, halting at first, then flowing like a river breaking free. He spoke of the ranch, how his great-grandfather had homesteaded it in the 1800s, fighting blizzards and bandits to carve out a life. "It's in my blood," he said. "But after Mary, it's like the color drained out of everything." He shared about Mary, their meeting at a county fair when they were barely 20, her infectious laugh that could chase away storm clouds, the way she'd stand by him through droughts and market crashes. "She was my anchor," Jack confessed, his voice cracking. "Cancer took her slow. I held her hand till the end, promised I'd keep going. But alone. It's eating me alive." Lila listened, her posture softening. No judgment from him, no demands. It was disarming. As he spoke, she felt a crack in her own walls, a profound realization that this stranger saw her not as an object, but as a listener, a equal. "Why tell me all this?" she asked when he paused. Jack shrugged. "Because you're here. And maybe I needed to say it out loud." Encouraged, Lila began to share her own tale, the words spilling unexpectedly. Born in Billings to a single mother who worked double shifts, Lila had dreamed of college, of teaching kids about history and hope. But life derailed her, an abusive boyfriend, mounting debts from medical bills for her mom's illness, choices that led her to the silver spur. "It's supposed to be temporary," she said bitterly. "Pay off the loans, get out. But 2 years in, and I'm still here, invisible except when someone pays." Jack absorbed her words, empathy blooming in his chest. Their stories mirrored each other: loss, isolation, the grind of survival. The room, once a cage of awkwardness, transformed into a sanctuary. As the hour wound down, Lila glanced at the clock. "Time's up." Jack stood, but instead of leaving, he dug into his wallet, pulling out every last bill, another $500, scraped from savings. "This ain't for more time," he said, pressing it into her hand. "It's for you. Get out of this place. Bus ticket, fresh start, whatever you need." Lila stared at the money, then at him, tears pricking her eyes. "Why? You don't owe me anything." Jack's response was simple, heartfelt: "Because kindness don't cost nothing but gives everything. Mary showed me that. And helping you, it might just help me too." It was a moment of profound realization for both, the power of selflessness in a world that often rewarded the opposite. Lila's hand trembled as she accepted it, an unexpected turn shifting her path. She didn't spend it on a bus. That night, after quitting Earl amid his furious protests, Lila drove her beat-up sedan to Harlan's legacy, arriving at dawn with a suitcase and determination. Jack, brewing coffee on the porch, saw her and smiled, a genuine one, the first in years. "Room's yours if you want it. Work too, feeding livestock, riding fence. Real pay, no strings." The days that followed were a whirlwind of adjustment. Lila learned the rhythms of ranch life, rising with the sun, saddling horses, herding cattle across golden fields. Her hands blistered at first, but she embraced the pain as rebirth. Jack taught her patiently, sharing stories of the land's history, the Native American trails that crossed it, the pioneer hardships. In turn, Lila brought fresh energy, ideas for sustainable farming, attracting eco-tourists to supplement income. The ranch, once teetering on the edge, began to thrive. But the emotional climax built slowly, culminating one stormy